program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9.
Welcome to Eggs and Issues. I'm Scott Peter with Muskie Tank, Chair of the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee. Our monthly Governmental Affairs series is one of the Chamber's business advocacy events. Special thanks to our advocate-level sponsors, Excel Energy and Myron Construction, and our supporter-level sponsors, Banbury Place and Eau Claire Energy Cooperative. We've got a few announcements before we get started, and I know that they've been and still are up on the screen. Next month's Eggs and Issues, Friday, March 16th, features the area legislators. That'll be at the Clarion. Primary election, Tuesday, April 3rd. And supporting that primary election, the Chamber will be co-sponsoring two candidate forums, one with the Eau Claire School Board on March 8th at 7 p.m. and the Eau Claire City Council at March 15th at 7 p.m., both at CVTC's Business Education Center. Other upcoming events, the Chamber's annual sales conference next Wednesday, February 21st at the Florian Gardens, and today is the last day to sign up for that. So if you'd like to do that, there are flyers on the table. Also, mark your calendar for the Chamber's 6th annual Human Resource Conference, Tuesday, April 3rd. On to today's Eggs and Issue topic, and always a good one, the Chamber's annual State of the City address. Our presenters are Eau Claire City Council President Carrie Kincaid and Eau Claire City Manager Dale Peters. Carrie has been a member of the City Council since 2004. She was elected as Council President in 2009 and re-elected in 2012, 2014, and 2017. Carrie has lived in Eau Claire for more than 30 years when she moved here to take a position as a registered nurse. She holds degrees from UW Eau Claire in political science and secondary education, a master's degree from UW-Madison in library science. Dale has worked with the City of Eau Claire for nearly 29 years, is currently serving as a city manager. Prior to the most recent appointment, Dale was a Director of Human Resources, Risk Management, Purchasing and Information Systems, and served 10 years as Assistant City Manager. Before joining the City of Eau Claire, he worked in the Finance Department at the corporate headquarters of Conagra in Omaha, Nebraska. Please join me in welcoming Carrie Kincaid and Dale Peters.
We've become partners. So thank you all for coming this morning. It's a little bit humbling to look out and see all of you. So
very humbling.
We appreciate actually very much that you're here to hear what we have to say today. And welcome to the State of the City, a review of the year 2017 in our city. As you can see, our title this year is Steady as She Goes in a Stormy Sea. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Dale. And good morning. We'd like certainly to thank the Chamber and Valley Media Works and the Lismore for hosting this morning's State of the City presentation.
With us this morning, before we get going, I just want to acknowledge that several council members are here to support me, I think, and to support the work that we do as elected officials. Kathy Mitchell is right here, the Vice President of the City Council, David Klinkhammer, Bob Van Hayden, Terry Weld, and thank you for coming this morning, all of you.
We also have several members of the city staff here as well, and so if you could just raise your hand. David Solberg, our Director of Engineering, back there. Jeff Pippinger, who is the head of our community services. Jay Winzan's our finance director back there. I believe Vicki Sultan is here as our human resource director. Chris Bell, our fire chief. Chris, where are you? Back there. Steve Nick, our city attorney. Way in the back there. Jerry Staniszewski, our police chief. Lisa Gagizi, our director of public health. And I don't believe Pamela is here, but Issa, did I hear that you were here? Issa Small? From the library? Nope, okay. And then Mike Schatz, our economic development manager, right up here in front, working on the economic development stuff. And of course, Kathy Marole, right over here for her expert assistance with this presentation. And Kathy, please know how grateful we are for your help with this. As we talk today, please reference the list of accomplishments that are on your table. It's the blue sheet, and certainly feel free to take it home with you at the end of the morning.
And so we could say, and people would certainly agree, that we are in a time of change in our city, in our country, and across the world. We sail a stormy sea, seafarers might say. In fact, Thomas Friedman wrote a book about all this change called Thank You for Being Late. In it, he argues that the key forces driving an accelerated change today in technology and globalization and climate change are interacting at a very accelerating pace, a pace that affects people and is reshaping the workplace and politics, ethical choices, and communities. His book is one big pause. Thank you for being late, so I can think.
Taking his lead, we paused this year to think about the state of Eau Claire in 2017. How are we weathering the accelerating change in the world? And what do we see on the horizon? And what do we need to do to chart a course for success?
Today we talk about how we think Eau Claire is charting that course through a global sea change by using the metaphor of a steamship. Yes, a steamship. Not a tugboat or a pleasure boat or sailboat, not a super tanker, but a steamship. Ours is a message of reassurance in our steady as she goes style. So let us explain.
But first, we need to talk a little bit about what is a steamship. A steamship is nimble, it's powerful, it's practical and seaworthy, and a steamship is confident in its purpose, in its ability to move almost anything in any conditions to almost anywhere in the world. The steamship arrived in the world scene about the late 1800s as the Industrial Revolution ushered in an era of globalization. Before that time, the steamship would nimbly navigate inland waters using paddle wheels. But over time, the steamship became more powerful, making ocean travel possible. Commercial shipping took advantage of the ship's efficiencies and use of practical fuel savings. And by World Wars, practical or powerful steamships propelled thousands of U.S. Liberty ships around the world. In our time, a new class of steamships power nuclear carriers to the service of our country. Steamships are confident in its purpose. The steamship has weathered many changes in technology and demand.
So how is Eau Claire like a steamship? We are
Nimble. Like that steamship, Eau Claire propels under its own power. We can weather any storm.
powerful, like a steamship whose power grew from the paddle boat to a mighty nuclear ship. Eau Claire's power has grown. We are the economic and the cultural anchor for our region, a responsibility that we take very seriously.
And we're practical and adaptable. Like the steamship that survived by adapting to change, Eau Claire adapts. But we're practical in our approach. We carry our cargo through any sea, flat or rough.
Confident in our purpose. Like the steamship, Eau Claire understands its purpose. We are a working city in west central Wisconsin whose purpose is advancing the common good. We don't easily get blown off that course.
So why is it important to be seaworthy, like that steamship? Well, because the global seas that we navigate, it's stormy, and it's got strong currents. And we don't rest on solid ground beneath these days, but instead our ground is more fluid, like that sea beneath a ship. Some of these currents, well, they go in the same direction that we want to go, but others, they push back, and they may alter us off course, or they may cause us to use more energy to achieve our goals. Many of these currents are unpredictable, and their high waves and strong winds, if we let them, could entice us to toss out that sea anchor or run for a safe harbor. or we can take those currents and we can embrace the challenge and we can turn that bow of that ship into the wind, face it head on, and challenge the waves of our time. You know, in a stormy sea, the captain can't see over the next wave, and it's time for all hands on deck. The whole crew must work together, and each person doing their job must act with confidence, must trust the others that they're doing their job, and of course it's challenging, and it's hard work to keep a ship on course. But that's what we do. That's what we do here in Eau Claire. We keep this ship on course. Now, the remainder of this address is going to prove our case that Eau Claire navigates today's stormy seas like a storm ship, and why it is good that we do so.
Like a steamship. We begin with that first attribute. Steamships are nimble. The steamship changed the way ships travel the sea. For no longer being dependent to catch the wind, the steamship nimbly navigates any water, anytime, regardless of weather conditions.
Eau Claire is nimble too. For example, we have nimbly navigated internal workforce changes. We combined the street department and the parks division with our vehicle and building maintenance into one department. These skilled public servants, they take care of all this stuff. They keep it running. They keep it mowed, patched, lit, open, and functional. We created a standalone department for engineering. This talented staff oversees our major infrastructure upgrades of roads, buildings, underground utilities, and infrastructure. And we, like all of your organizations, we're experiencing key turnover in positions due to baby boomer retirements. And retaining institutional knowledge and experience, it's a challenging thing. I don't know about your organizations, but for us, we've had over 50% of our organization turnover in a 10-year period, and we're about halfway through that.
And we will soon employ a new technology that will improve employee productivity and flexibility through software called Employee Self-Service and Work Order Training. This will greatly enhance our response to demands after the work hours. For like a ship, we must be diligent and vigilant to changing conditions 24 hours a day.
We also constantly train to foster a culture of service. And we do this by understanding that we can't provide quality service to the public without first serving each other. Our training is grounded on some core values of integrity, collaboration, service, and fairness. We strive to have all of our actions with each other and the public centered on these core values.
Eau Claire is also nimble in how we chose to navigate renovations to our old beloved City Hall. In 1906, the city built a Carnegie Library with the help from the Carnegie Foundation. In 1916, we built a city hall right next to it. Then in 1976, the last work done on these two buildings connected them with a modern link. In 2016, we decided to stay in our historic buildings. We simply couldn't build a new government complex, though one might be needed, when we have two beautiful historic buildings in downtown where we belong. For a fraction of the cost to build new, we sealed, stored, and will modernize while preserving our heritage and contributing to the aesthetic beauty of downtown. That internal renovation will kick off in August of 2018.
The renovations give us an opportunity to examine the building layout, to improve service delivery, workflow, and, very importantly, how we address employee safety needs. We're also taking a close look at how we store and retrieve records. This massive conversion of paper to electronic filing systems allows us to reevaluate the processes that support a nimble workforce. And if all goes well, when we move out later this summer for the remodeling, most of our employees will only need their computer and a phone, and they'll be able to plug into the network and have complete access to all of their work. We nimbly navigate communication technology as well. Many of you might know that increasingly we're relying on social media and web-based tools to inform and communicate with the citizens of Eau Claire. Citizens can now sign up to automatically be notified of upcoming meetings and issues that are of interest. Our 8 Facebook pages and 6 Twitter accounts allow us to connect with the public and build pride in the community. It's also an interactive way to receive feedback and information. For example, following storm events, we can better access damage and dispatch services, and we're using social media increasingly to do that. During some storm events, we've actually received more information from social media than we do through calls to the 911 center.
So far we've shown that Eau Claire is nimble, like a steamship. But steamships are also powerful because they understand the power of steam. In Sam Parker's book, 212 Degrees, The Extra Degree, the author talks about the power of steam. He says, at 211 degrees, water's hot. At 212 degrees, it boils. And with boiling water comes steam. And with steam, you can power a ship. 1 extra degree means all the difference between something that is simply hot and something that generates enough power to power a machine. That 1 degree, however, takes tremendous effort, and we understand that. But without that effort, you just have boiling water. Our city needs that 1 extra degree of effort. The power of steam gets us places. Boiling water just gets us wet.
Although it's warm wet.
Warm wet.
So, how do we use that power? We use power for local decisions, but with increasing frequency, we're understanding that the state is restricting our ability to set our own course. We've seen limits on the way we can develop and grow, limits on local control for ferrous mining, limits on where we can place infrastructure, like mobile technology towers, limits on local building codes, limits on landlord-tenant ordinances, even limits on our ability to control hunting or switchblades or firearm possessions.
The state even limits our taxing ability with a formula that barely keeps pace with inflation while flatlining state aid. Our service needs grow every year, however, as our population grows. Although it is discouraging that the state, it looks like they don't trust local government to make wise and local decisions that will move our community forward. Just lost my place. Our ship, despite this discouraging fact, our ship is nimble and seaworthy and able to navigate around these obstacles. Like a ship, we look for ways to be more self-sufficient.
We use power to develop a self-sufficient economy. With power and self-control, we must develop a self-sufficient economy, and we've got to leverage the local resources to peak use. If you didn't already know, last year we had record growth. I mean, absolute record growth, smashing the previous record by almost $100 million. We had $296 million of permit valuation last year, an amazing growth for the community. And we continue to foster growth in our downtown with the leadership and dedication of DECI, a unique and highly successful approach to energizing a downtown, an organization that's staffed with city employees, and with oversight from a diverse board. This talented group binds and focuses the collective energy of over 100 businesses and thousands of people to provide festivals and fun and promote our downtown.
And speaking of local control and collaboration, last fall, the city, Eau Claire County, and the city of Altoona joined together with the Local Government Institute to host a summit to develop strategic plans for the future of a creative economy in the Chippewa Valley. Our efforts will make sure we build creativity into our economy. And speaking of changing economies, this year we re-examined the way we facilitate economic development in our region. We held a summit and asked participants the question, are we structured to prepare for the 21st century economy? The answer to that question is still unfolding.
Another revision includes rethinking our economic development loan programs. We eliminated underutilized programs, reorganized others, and created new programs to offer broader, more flexible programs to our city businesses.
We also use power to enforce. We understand that we have power to enforce. Standards of fairness are our guide. Believe me, the City Council understands power. We held over 200 public hearings and discussions over the last 3 years, and at every one of them we exercise power over people's lives, a responsibility that we take very seriously. Council meetings are serious places for serious business. For example, we exercise power to enforce a new housing code that will protect people. In 2017, the city's long-standing housing code was strengthened with a more robust inspection program and rental registration. Rental registration is very practical. It builds a database of rental properties, who owns the property and who is responsible for managing the property. So if police and fire, the health department, city inspection need to contact the property owner, now we can do that. In this way, the city addresses complaints by renters and neighbors about the condition of a rental property. The City County Health Department was a major lead on this effort, and housing code changes were recommended by a committee of over 30 community members and approved by the City Council. The City Attorney's Office drafted a fine ordinance, which is now in its implementation phase.
This year, the city's police department collaborated with Fierce Freedom. If you're not familiar with them, they're an advocacy group working to eliminate human trafficking. So the police department with Fierce Freedom and Visit Eau Claire worked to increase awareness and enforcement of the crime of human trafficking. This collaboration with Fierce Freedom helped educate hotel staff about the signs of trafficking. And Visit Eau Claire's partnership in the Be Aware campaign trained hotel staff to detect trafficking in their hotels. This training and intentional effort produced some really real results, because just last week, a woman was rescued from the grip of human trafficking situation. Police officers also spoke at many community events. Prevention of such crime is that main focus of their efforts, but they're also looking proactively to do enforcements. This year, a partnership with the DOJ Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force will also add a DOJ expert to assist in the city's efforts. So we've shown so far that Eau Claire is nimble and it's powerful, but you know what? She's also practical, like that steamship, which is adapted over time.
And how are we practical? We are practical in the way we adapted to new technology and demands in energy, for one example. Some adaptations save us money, some help save the planet. We are, in many ways, actually a self-sustaining city. But among the things that we need from an outside source is energy. Where we get the energy from matters. The wind, ferrous mining, natural gas, solar, coal, all have costs and benefits. This year, the city capitalized on improving cost efficiencies from solar energy. Solar energy is becoming cheaper, so we entered into a community solar agreement with Xcel Energy to generate some of our power from the wind. We became one of the first major purchasers of solar energy generated in Eau Claire at the Solar Garden. Enough solar energy, in fact, to heat the municipal pool for an entire summer. Eau Claire is a city, then, that adapts to energy sources as they become available and are more affordable. Practical.
Last year, we changed course on a planned public transit transfer center. Plans to build the replacement transfer center on the Wood Motor Lot were reconsidered to provide a more flexible building that's adaptable to changes in demand and technology. You know, we do not know yet what the impact of autonomous vehicles will be, or if Scott's going to be successful in getting passenger rail here in Eau Claire, along with a lot of other work. But we need to be flexible on that. And so we revised our plans, and if we get a thing called a Tiger Grant, we will have the flexibility, if needed, to convert the new transfer space into commercial uses to meet future demands for public transportation. We're practical and adaptable.
We talked about Eau Claire as being nimble, powerful, and practical, all necessary to be an effective city. But a ship or a city needs a crew to run the ship. It takes confident people to steer the ship towards its purpose. For despite good design and functionality, the steamship just sits idly in the water without a top-notch crew. In Eau Claire, our top-notch crew focuses on collaboration, partnerships, and the common good. We are confident in this purpose.
We show our confidence in these partnerships. You know, as we look back, the wake of this last year, there were so many projects that came to fruition because we were confident in this purpose. We're constantly looking for ways to say yes, to develop partnerships, and find ways to collaborate. Here's just a few of examples of those partnerships. 1, Carson Park Causeway. This gateway project to our crowned community park is a partnership between the DNR and the DOT. We replaced and upgraded the causeway and the bridge, and now there's a beautiful, accessible, and inviting public works project that the community is going to be proud to share and use for decades to come.
Speaking of crown jewels, in Carson Park sits our grand and historic baseball stadium, which is in need of some renovation. The city planned to spend about $1.75 million on some basic renovations, but instead, partnering with baseball enthusiast groups in fundraising, we added other amenities that will make the stadium, I think we can say, more lovely, more what she's supposed to be, and extend the seasonal use of that facility.
And as most of you know, the university received a generous donation of land along Menominee Street from the Sonnentag family. The university has approached community partners to explore developing a facility that would address several community needs, as well as university needs. Just like the Confluence Project had its roots in the university needing to replace Care Theater, and the community was able to leverage this need into a community-wide performing arts space, so now the university's need to replace Zorn Arena presents an opportunity to address community needs. Perhaps like replacing an aging YMCA, creating a more student dorm space, opportunities for river-based activities, linking community health and fitness to Mayo Clinic, community event space, convention space, or hotel facilities. Now, can all these ideas fit into one space? That has yet to be determined. But what we should really be proud of is that we as a community were taking the time to explore those possibilities, which says a lot. It says a lot about our ability to engage in discussions that are challenging to the status quo and conventional thinking. For our part, we're funding a joint study with Visit Eau Claire to explore the feasibility of the event and convention space, and we're also working with the university on their infrastructure needs.
Mills Fleet Farm, a significant retail development on Highway 93, was helped because the city punched water and sewer utilities under the interstate and rerouted Old Town Hall Road.
And you might understand that providing high-quality, cost-effective emergency medical services outside a city is a really challenging thing to do. But we've worked cooperatively with the surrounding communities and townships, and we provide critical EMS services throughout the region through a regional EMS agreement that serves 14 communities with paramedic level, I mean, think about that, highest level, paramedic level service of emergency medical services to 14 surrounding communities with a partnership between the city and those communities.
The Miracle Field, a $500,000 ball field for individuals with cognitive and physical limits, was paid for through fundraising and donations, but built on city land in a city park next to the
Jeffers Park ball field complex, softball complex, which was also built using funds generated through the hard work of volunteers that raised money and with coordination and assistance from the city, built the city's premier softball complex.
Pétanque. Anyone heard of pétanque? It's a French lawn game that needs just a little public space and some minor groundkeeping alterations. An enthusiast of the game offered to raise money, and soon, after the snow is gone, Wilson Park will see an old public space teeming with pétanque players. Who knew that we would become a city known for cube and ski jumping, and now maybe pétanque?
And then there's those pickleball players. Just a couple of you in the room, maybe? I learned we have a new one. I didn't realize that Councilmember Weld plays pickleball, but we have a pickleball. We had to expand the pickleball courts. But like pétanque, a group of passionate players raised the money to expand the courts at McDonough Park.
And although in the planning stages, the Veterans Group is raising money for the installation of a Veterans Tribute on a trail along Forest Street, north of Madison Street. Another example of partnership in our city.
And working with the Chamber's Leadership Eau Claire Group, the city now has a Public Arts Council, a group of dedicated, passionate individuals who will be working to connect local artists to public spaces.
And how could we reflect on 2017 without highlighting the Confluence Project? A spectacular example of a community coming together to build a shared arts facility that will stand as a model for cooperation and gritty hard work far into the future. We are grateful to the community's support and to the state for approving the non-state agency grant that helped us fund this project.
And then there's that bridge project, right? On the old railroad bridge that crosses the Chippewa River to Phoenix Park, that lighting bridge project. Have you all seen it? I hope you have. It's an amazing decorative light project, and it was initiated by the Downtown Rotary Club. And it's already drawn thousands of people downtown at night. The project has provided the inspiration to connect a coordinated outdoor decorative lighting project between the Confluence Arts Center, Haymarket Plaza, and the planned pedestrian bridge, connecting Phoenix Park to the Haymarket Plaza. Eau Claire might finally have its love note. Peter Kegmaier, in his book For the Love of City, calls a love note that special place of pride that's like a handwritten note that accompanies a gift. A love note to a city is that thing that has outsized impact. Now, all of these projects that we just mentioned, they have one thing in common. Dedicated, passionate people who love the city of Eau Claire, and they want to create something new and improved and exciting in Eau Claire. These amazing individuals and groups, they're willing to donate their time and their money and their talents to make Eau Claire a better place, to make us a great place, a place that we all proudly call home. Our job as a city is to say yes whenever we can and to do everything that we can to encourage and foster these creative ideas so that they can become successful, practical, and sustainable projects for our community.
We are also confident in our purpose to advance the common good. That doesn't mean that we don't help the individual, as often we do. For example, we might defer a sidewalk in front of a property, or adjust a property line for a business that wants to expand its building. Sometimes we help council members who have special needs. But because we sometimes accommodate the individual, it doesn't mean that our main purpose shifts away from serving the common good. We are most concerned with the welfare of all of us, and our most important purpose is to use Oprah's recent admonition that no one in our city needs cry, "Me too."
So how else do we show confidence in our purpose? Well, one way is by taking care of what we have. And that's not an easy task. We've got hundreds of miles of streets and sidewalks and utilities, 350 cars and trucks and other moving equipment, 100-year-old historic buildings, and 1,700 acres of new and old parks. Infrastructure that, if we're responsible, demand attention in a city that limits our revenues with an organization that has fewer employees today than it did in 1980. That said, and no whining happening here, We are committed to maintaining and improving our infrastructure and approaches that involve public input. We have a refined capital improvement process that provides for public input during the design phase of most of our projects, and certainly at the approval phase of all of our projects. For example, Brackett Avenue. It was a major arterial street. It was not only an important project with city impact, but a project that impacted a lot of businesses and transportation impacts to 3 different schools. Our engineering staff held countless meetings and conversations to balance the competing needs of business, residents, bicycles, pedestrians, autos, and the transportation needs of an entire project. That's a really, really challenging task. But you know what? They were up for it, and the final project is a greatly improved Brackett Avenue project for all.
And as we improve our transportation infrastructure, we are aware that changing demographics and cultural demands, cultural trends demand that we focus on safe travel for people on bike or on foot. This is not necessarily a new focus for us. As you know, the city has more recreational trails than any city in the state of Wisconsin, except for Madison. We furthered this distinction last year when we added a trail link from Madison Street to the High Bridge in what has become called the Cannery District. And this year, we installed sharrows, bike lanes, and bike lanes across the Water Street Bridge, and a new bike box on Brackett Avenue.
We also aggressively protected our natural resources in Eau Claire because we can and should be proud of the quality of our drinking water. Last year, we further protected this important resource by passing a wellhead protection ordinance to better control the land uses that sit atop this wellfield aquifer.
And finally, Eau Claire is also confident in its purpose in taking care of people during vulnerable times. Examples include transit fare changes. The 2018 budget increased transit fares after a decade of growing subsidies from the general fund to our transit system. In response, a task force spearheaded by council members worked with city staff to provide reduced transit fares for low-income people. Their new idea will offer reduced transit fares to people who receive services like SNAP and WIC. Those of us who are working to alleviate homelessness in our city understand that a reduced transit fare eliminates a major barrier to employment by supporting transportation to and from a job. Reduced transit fares are a way to help people through a vulnerable time during which the slightest change in costs or revenues create profound outcomes. This is one way that we provide direct positive effect in helping people to mitigate the effects of living in poverty in our community.
Also this last year, the City Council, with considerable help from our capable finance department, created a new tax increment financing district in the Water Street area. This new TID 12 will for the very first time allow increment to be spent on housing upgrades in the historic Randall Park neighborhood. While the actual mechanism for doing so is yet to be determined, the idea is that increment will be invested to improve housing stock in the neighborhood. The city's also leveraging a grant called Invest Health to better understand how the built environment impacts health, with specific focuses on the historic Randall Park neighborhood. This neighborhood has seen increasing density of student housing over the decades and a lack of attention to historic affordable homes. Converting multiple family to single affordable housing and staving historic architecture when possible is a way to save a vulnerable neighborhood.
In another first, the health department conducted a health assessment in the built environment for the new Cannery District with a grant from the Healthier Wisconsin Partnership Program. Such health assessments help public leaders identify potential negative health impacts in a planned development because we learn to add health impact risk factors as we look over other policy considerations in a planned development. Things like potential food deserts, and walkability are evaluated, most often through direct neighborhood involvement.
And in another first, addressing vulnerable populations, the public library launched a policy to eliminate late fines on nearly all materials. On January 1st, the library stopped issuing late fines and waived existing fines. They found that many blocked library cards affected children who were no longer able to check out materials because their families could not pay for late fees. This is not consistent with the values of our community. And you know what? This past January saw record activity, with children having access to and support of learning to read, that fundamental building block for success in life, which if we don't learn at an early age, creates a lifetime of obstacles. The library is also about to begin a major capital campaign project. Part of the rationale for that project is that the role of the library is changing in our community. Libraries are becoming centers for public gathering and activities, which often include accommodating people experiencing homelessness or other vulnerabilities. Our public library recognizes its important role in accommodating all people who enter the door, if they obey certain common rules of decorum. Here's another example of fulfilling the public sector's purpose to help vulnerable people.
And lastly, access to information has become a fundamental service need for businesses, schools, individuals, and families. Like water and sewer, roads, police, and fire, access to the internet is a key determinant for success and viability in a community. But that access has been threatened, making the city vulnerable. The theme of this presentation is how Eau Claire actively and intentionally navigates the sea of change around us. The repeal of net neutrality rules by the FCC creates a storm on the horizon that must be watched. And as we prepare to sail through this storm, we will initiate discussions this year to monitor concerns about affordable and reliable access to information, and what, if anything, Eau Claire can and should do. In conclusion, we come to the end of a very long and serious presentation this year. We greeted you with a serious message on purpose, because we are in a serious time. But we wanted to reassure you not only that we recognize the seriousness of this, I guess one could say, chaos, but we are doing something about it. So our message is one of reassurance. And we close with the following, by returning to Mr. Friedman's book, Thank You for Being Late. At the end of it, he explains how to be resilient in this age of accelerating change. His advice evokes the attributes of the steamship that we have talked about. Be nimble and practical, Mr. Friedman says. Leaders must consciously choose to mimic what he calls Mother Nature's killer apps: adaptability, healthy interdependence, dynamic stability, and patience. I think probably mostly the latter. Be powerful and confident, Mr. Friedman says. Leaders can find power in being of a place, not just in it. Power that comes from understanding the unique combination of things that make up a city's ecosystem.
Friedman's reflection stems from a return to his childhood city, where he encounters the origin of his confidence of purpose. He recalls a city of his youth that practiced governance based on the common good. He found it still did and was glad. Finding it again made him hopeful. The same is true here in Eau Claire. In this city, leaders work together to adapt while keeping a steady course towards that common good. We used the metaphor of a steamship this year to offer that reassuring message, that we in Eau Claire, we're nimble, we're powerful, we're practical, and we are confident in our purpose, just like that old steamship.
These attributes help us navigate the stormy seas that surround us now. No matter where the future takes each and every one of you, we can, like Mr. Friedman, always return to Eau Claire to find the place that grounded us. For here, we find that democracy is still working. In the joy you see on those faces, you can see that service and leadership and democracy can be an earnest and rewarding endeavor. Democracy, after all, is a precious thing, and she deserves every effort, that last degree of effort from everyone in this room. Steady as she goes, we are a city that works. Thank you.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.